Hey man, the Minnesota Vikings go from being chased to chasing down Detroit. I'm going to explain all of that to you in just a second here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You heard it. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen on the Locked On NFL show, where you get a double dose of the biggest stories from around the National Football League with the use of local experts. This is the barbershop, and I'm the barber. My name is Tony Wiggins, and I got my boy Kevin Oestreicher here today, Locked On Ravens. I'm going to tell him what I said about Lamar Jackson winning MVP, too. I'll tell him that in just a second, but I'm going to let you know what we're going through today. At the end of the show, I'm going to quote Jay Glazer from Fox Sports. What position for Travis Hunter in the NFL? The Heisman Trophy winning Travis Hunter. Talk a little NFL draft on Locked On NFL for a change. Broncos, are they now that scary team in the AFC? Or maybe the Bucs are that scary team in the NFC? Now that the Chargers have lost and the Vikings have a legit chance for the NFC North and the number one seed in the NFC. I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But first, I have to let you know that today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Also, you can check out Locked On NFL over on Amazon Music. Make sure you go over to Amazon Music and check out Locked On NFL. Kevin Oestreicher. We sitting here all year, and I've been sitting there talking about everybody talking about Detroit. Now, I have to preface this by saying the only reason I think this might be possible is because Detroit has had like the most injuries I've ever seen. I've never ever in my life seen a team have this many injuries. But today it's not about them. It's about the Minnesota Vikings, who won another game last night in a very, very impressive fashion. Before we get to Luke running up and down the street, I want to get your thoughts on the Minnesota Vikings and what their prospects are for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good football team. And I think, in my opinion, you're right. Like Detroit, I've had a couple of injury teams in Baltimore where you look at those injury lists and their CVS receipts, and it's like, you get 2-3 players on there every week and star players going down left and right. I think everybody can agree if Detroit was healthy, they'd be the runaway favorite in the NFC, but that's just not the case. They're not healthy. And so you have a good team in Minnesota that is firing on most cylinders right now. And, if you had told me a month and a half ago that Minnesota in the middle of December was going to have a shot to get Detroit up out of that number one seed, I would have been like, man, what are you talking about? But hey, right. you've been sneakily putting this out in the air for a little bit now.
Just a little bit.
You've been saying, hey, don't sleep on Minnesota. This is a team that could do some damage. And look where we are. So you should take your victory lap and take it 10 times over because you called this thing.
You know what? No, you know what, man? Ain't no need to do that because guess what? Barbers say all kinds of stuff. They just throw stuff out there. And if it hits, boom, we say, see, I told you. See, that's what barbers do. Barbers and church deacons, all they do is just say little things so they can always go back and say, I said that at some point. No, but I get what you're saying. I just kept thinking that it was a team that folks were so entrenched into. It eventually, this is what everybody's saying. Eventually, Sam Darnold is going to Sam Darnold. Well, no, Sam Darnold has not Sam Darnold. And I think that comes with Kevin O'Connell being able to know how to navigate Sam Darnold through this is new territory for him. I tell you what, though. We all thought that we didn't realize Minnesota was chasing somebody because we thought Minnesota had someone chasing themselves, and that was themselves, right? I'll tell you what I do believe their Achilles heel is, and it's not necessarily Sam Darnold, but it has something to do with him. But first, I got to let y'all see Luke Braun running down the street from God knows who.
Okay, I think we lost him. What's up, everybody? It's Luke Braun here, and I'm running from the specter of January expectations. The Vikings have clinched the playoffs, and that means that it's real. Everything that happens from here is about playoff seeding and what happens in January, where the Vikings will be playing thanks to the loss the Seattle Seahawks took on Sunday Night Football. And if the Vikings win on Monday Night Football, they're tied with the Lions, and they control their own destiny for the 1 seed. As good of a Sunday as you could imagine for the Vikings. But we're not safe yet. January scaries. Once they get me, they're coming for you next.
Run, Luke. Run. Go. Don't stop. Because he can't actually stop now. Because guess what happened? Minnesota actually won the game, right? I had to play that for y'all today. I got it too late to play it on yesterday's show. They won the game. Minnesota blasted the Atlanta Falcons, man, in a game last night. Chicago Bears. I'm sorry. They blasted the Chicago Bears in the game last night, 30-12. I thought for a minute, though, that they were playing with their food. So if Luke is running from anybody, it's no longer the expectations of January. What he's actually running from is they got an injury at right tackle. They got Cam Robinson, who had 3 penalties at left tackle. I think when they meet these elite teams, and Detroit, because of all the injuries, they didn't want them anymore, even though, they do have some reinforcements, but even their reinforcements are hurt. I believe Philadelphia, with that kind of pressure that they can put on people, I believe Green Bay with their pass rush, and even with Tampa, the way they can jump things up, they could be a problem. So when I say it's not Sam Darnold, I think their Achilles heel is their offensive line, which affects Sam Darnold. And that may be what Luke is running from a little bit, but I actually think they're going to win the division.
Man, if Detroit keeps getting injured like they are, even if they don't, I mean, their injury list is just so big. But I think what people might forget is that people didn't really know what Minnesota was going to be this year once Kirk Cousins left. It was, okay, J.J. McCarthy, are they going to start him for the whole season? Is Sam Darnold going to be a bridge guy? J.J. obviously gets injured, and all of a sudden Sam Darnold comes in, and you're kind of like, well, how good is Sam Darnold really going to be? Is he going to be able to get that connection with Justin Jefferson going? And here we are. I mean, remember, he was in that MVP conversation for the first, 2 months of the season before, obviously, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley kind of took that over. But this was a team that people didn't really expect to have the year that they're having. It was kind of, I guess, a mini rebuild, but they brought in guys like Aaron Jones. They brought in vets.
Jonathan Grenard to replace Danielle Hunter. Yeah.
Now they are benefiting from the rewards of that.
They are, but you know what I think they are really, really good and really, really adept at doing? They don't play outside of who they know they are. And they play to their strengths. They play away from their weaknesses. And then the other thing that helps them identify players in free agency, because they got guys performing. They already have really, really good people in the secondary, but they have guys that really, really fit what Brian Flores wants to do. And they may bend a little bit, but they never, ever, ever break, and they can rush the passer, and they dial stuff up, man, when you least expect it. So they're going to have a shot going into the playoffs against anybody. I'm going to tell you somebody else that got a shot. Believe it or not, Denver. Denver has both of these teams, by the way. Minnesota is one. I said they were going to have a terrible year. Let me go ahead and be, you know what? I'm going to do it at the top. I'm going to do it at the top because I have to, man. When I tell you the teams that I'm going to be transparent. When I said the teams that I thought would fall off this year, it's going to make me not seem like I'm really, really that smart. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Game Time. You are never too late to buy tickets at Game Time. For any event, whether it's sports, plays, comedy shows, monster trucks, does not matter. You are never too late, even if the event has already started. Game Time has curated deals that make it easier for you to find the best price on great seats. The super deals, seat views before you buy, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and even more. The priority for me, though, is the Game Time picks. It's a curation, which makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and all of the rest of that. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. I'm going to spell a redeem code for you. It's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And today's show is brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the stretch run in the NFL with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Now, I know your team ain't winning. If your team ain't winning, if you like the Jaguars, you can still win some money. You know, they got point spreads on there. You know, they got all of that stuff. So you can still get paid, right? Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. No more trying to change your screen and swipe your screen in that hot sun when you're at the game. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Rolling along here on Locked On NFL, where it is your team every day. We got my man Kevin Oestreicher from Locked On NFL, Locked On Ravens, Locked On AFC squads. Anything else? Any other Locked On I didn't even mention about, man?
Yeah, we'd be here for a while.
All right, all that work you put there, man. Yeah, but that's why he's here with us here on every Tuesday. So I was wrong about Minnesota. I thought that they were in a total rebuild. I thought their rookie was going to play. And I was also thinking if they play Sam Darnold, they're in trouble. I was wrong about Buffalo. I thought they had lost too many people to be doing what they're doing, and shout out to them for doing what they're doing. I think the Bills fans got mad at me the other day also. So I was dead wrong about them. I did not think that they would progress the way that they have. Who was it? It was them. It's 3 playoff teams. I got to look up here because I had it all in my mind about the teams that I was absolutely wrong. Of course, everybody I think was wrong about the 49ers, but they had their injuries. But the thing is, KO, sometimes you got to admit when you're wrong. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm admitting that I was absolutely wrong about I was wrong about those teams, man. I was wrong about them. It's just like nothing wrong with admitting it, you know what I'm saying? But they are really it's Denver. Early this year, that's where I was going. Denver is the team. I think it was Chris Carter, Julian Council, it might have been Matt Williamson. I said that Bo Nix was going to get Sean Payton fired. Bo Nix might get Sean Payton Coach of the Year. Bo Nix might get Rookie of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. But they are a dangerous, dangerous team. I thought it was either going to be them or the Chargers in the AFC that was super, super dangerous. And Tampa Bay is a problem for those teams. Remember, Tampa beat Detroit early in the year when nobody else thought they did. People didn't think they could do it. So I really thought that that's where the problems were going to be for those teams, and those teams turned out to be good. But Denver, man, are you impressed with the Broncos just like I am? And you being a Ravens guy, are you afraid of them?
Yeah, I think that Denver's been awesome. I mean, Bo Nix I had questions about whether he could step in and do the job he's doing, but the thing with me is I didn't really know who else their offensive weapons were going to be outside of Cortland Sutton. They traded Jerry Jeudy over to Cleveland, and obviously he's been balling out over there, but they've gotten contributions from a lot of guys. The run game was a question, and it's been a weird year for them in the run game, but they've been able to get other contributions from other guys too. So, man, it feels like Denver is one of these teams that, like, you always anticipate a rebuild window being whatever X amount of years, 1, 2, 3. But it feels like a lot of these teams are just blowing those expectations out of the water. And all of a sudden it's, nope, there was no rebuild. Here we are. We're here now. And for Denver, with me being a Ravens guy, I mean, the Ravens beat up on Denver earlier in the season. And I feel like if Baltimore got that matchup again, they'd feel pretty good about it, especially because they put up 40-plus points on what at the time was the best defense in the NFL. But this is a team that, you look a couple of years down the line, and Denver's able to kind of retool a little bit, get more talent around Bo Nix on that rookie contract. And I know everybody's talking about the Chiefs right now and all their ways of winning and whatever it may be. I don't know, over the next couple of years, maybe this is a hot take, maybe it's not. I feel like the AFC West could be a lot closer as the years go on.
I think they got 3 of the best coaches in the entire NFL. They got 3 of the top 7, top 8 coaches in the entire league. I want you to hear from Cody Rourke, though, from Locked On Broncos, about how ecstatic he was after their win.
The Denver Broncos have secured their first winning season since 2016 with a win over the Colts. It wasn't pretty, but it was gritty. This is Cody Rourke, host of Locked On Broncos, and the Broncos overcame a 13-7 deficit to a point where they were about to trail 20-7. Jonathan Taylor fumbled the ball out of the end zone and led to a touchback, and the Broncos scored 24 straight unanswered points. Electrifying performances on the day by Marvin Mims and Nick Bonito in back-to-back games here for the Broncos. They are now 9-5 and have a short turnaround now as they'll take on the Los Angeles Chargers on Thursday Night Football. But the biggest story coming out of this game, the Broncos offense, Bo Nix didn't have their best game. They still found a way to win the game. Nix threw 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, while Pat Surtain left the game with an ankle injury. We'll monitor his status throughout the week. A lot to break down. Check out Locked On Broncos wherever you get your podcasts and more.
So now I'm on copper plea. One of the reasons I was wrong is because until this season, everybody was still playing that high-flying football. Everybody was still throwing it around. So you automatically look at talent and you're going, oh, they ain't got it. They can't keep up with people. And then guess what? The league is morphed into the NFC East, or the old NFC from like the 80s and 90s when Pat Summerall and John Madden were calling games. And that is right in the wheelhouse of Sean Payton, because we remember where he comes from. We don't remember, like, we know what Drew Brees and Reggie Bush and all of those dudes did. I'm talking about Sean Payton before he got there, when he was in New York, when he was with the Dallas Cowboys, and how those teams played. This is another team that has an identity that you really, really have to watch out for.
Yeah, I think Denver is one of those sneaky teams that, there's always one of those teams that, you're a division winner and you're going and you're feeling good about yourself. And all of a sudden there's a wild card team. I mean, what does Denver have to lose? They have nothing to lose. This year's gone 20 million times better than they expected it to. If they get a playoff seeding here, and it looks like they're going to get a spot, if they get into the playoffs, there's all this pressure on higher seeded teams. We have these Super Bowl expectations, and man, we really have to, get locked in, and there's all that. And then Denver's coming in like, hey man, if we lose, we lose. I mean, whatever, but we're going out with a fight, and we're taking it 60 minutes, and that's what it's going to be. So those teams can sometimes be the most dangerous teams because they play free, and that can be, I mean, we've seen it over and over and over again in all sports where a lower seeded team shocks you because you're playing too wound up and too tight, and the other team is coming in and playing just with confidence. So I think Denver can be one of those teams. Maybe they're one and done, but at the end of the day, I think they have a shot.
And then the thing about that, catching you by surprise, they don't catch you by surprise with a deep ball here and a reverse hit. They catch you by surprise by punching you right in your face. And see, that's tried and true. Blocking and tackling and aggressiveness, especially when you do it with an identity, will always help. Now, Kevin Oestreicher, I'm going to do this for you before we hit segment 3. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I said Monday. Right after Josh Allen won that big game against Detroit, in Detroit, and really just punched the bully in the face and slayed the dragon, I came out the very next day and said Lamar Jackson is still the MVP because he threw 5 freaking touchdowns.
Let's go.
Okay. And I look at it and I say to myself, who's had the best season? Not which team made the correct adjustment in order to maximize their quarterback. Like they took the ball out of his hands in Buffalo a little bit. No, Baltimore put it all on Josh, and he has, right now, statistically, he's on pace to throw 44 touchdowns and 4 picks. And if that ain't MVP, I don't know who it is.
I mean, you look at the stats, Wig, and, Josh Allen has more rushing touchdowns than Lamar, and that's it. That's all he has that's better than Lamar. Passing yards, passing touchdowns, completion percentage, pass yards per attempt, pass yards per game, rush yards. All, like, I could go on and on and on. Lamar Jackson has had the better season. Now, Josh Allen, I think, has had more MVP moments, like beating Kansas City on that big run, and, Detroit, obviously. In those moments, Lamar has, there was that Steelers game he wasn't great in, and the Eagles game he wasn't great in, and that was when Josh had, 6 touchdowns and a loss to the Rams, and he was still getting talked about like it was a win. both these players are incredible players. I'm not trying to discount one to pump up the other, right? But at the end of the day, here in Baltimore, at least, Super Bowl MVP is the MVP a lot of people are looking at. You know, Lamar would trade all his MVPs and all his accolades for a Super Bowl victory. But my thing is give the award to the person that deserves it. I think both of these guys are very deserving. If you have Josh Allen as your favorite, that's fine. If you have Lamar Jackson as your favorite, that's fine too. But don't call the race over 3 weeks before the season's up. Like, we still have a lot of football to go here. And if you're just saying, no, Josh Allen's the MVP, see you later, Saquon, see you later, Lamar, that's not doing anybody justice.
No, it's not doing anybody any justice. The thing is, if Lamar doesn't win the MVP, it would be the greatest statistical season for a player who did not win the MVP. It'll also be a statistical season that's better than a whole bunch of guys who did win the MVP before, including Lamar, because this will be his best season ever. And that's the thing that kills me. I just don't understand, man. But that's what it is. All right, here's what I do understand. Bad teams pick early. A couple of guys from Colorado, one named Sanders, the other one named Hunter, that's going to be available. And there are a couple of bad teams in the National Football League. The one that I cover in Jacksonville is one of them. We ain't going to talk about them. We're going to talk about two of them from the NFC East. We're going to do that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right. Y'all know what time it is, man. You got to know what time it is. It is college football time. It's that time of year where college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoffs begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, SMU versus Penn State. Woo! At Penn State. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Our third and final segment here on Locked On NFL with my man Kevin Oestreicher. Kevin, there's a couple of teams in the NFC East in Philadelphia that is a serious Super Bowl contender and might be the favorite as long as Saquon Barkley stays healthy. And then you have the Washington Commanders, who many people probably felt like they were going to finish last because they picked in the top 3 of the draft, had a retread coach, riff-raff offensive line, and then they were just the worst team in all of professional sports. I mean, not the NFL, all sport, worst run organization, and they turned it around. But there are a couple of teams that haven't turned it around. One is in the biggest market in the country, and the other one is, well, the other one thinks they're in the bigger market in the country. I'm going to start with the latter, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. Listen in here to Landon McCool letting us know the status of what's going on in Big D.
Solid play by the running game and the Cowboys defense steadied them to a 30-14 victory in Carolina. Hi, I'm Landon McCool, the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and coming into the game, the Dallas Cowboys were actually underdogs to the Carolina Panthers, but incredible performance by the Cowboys defense as they were able to get after Bryce Young for 6 sacks, and a really, really outstanding game by Rico Dowdle on the ground helped steady the Cowboys as the passing attack for the Cowboys kind of was up and down, especially since Cooper Rush couldn't seem to hold on to the football. He had 3 fumbles today, but Dowdle had almost 150 yards on the ground, averaging 6 yards a carry. Like I mentioned, 6 sacks and 3 turnovers by the Cowboys defense made this a really tough game for Carolina to come back on. For more on this, make sure you check us out on the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and for more on your team, check out the podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now, Kevin, there's a reason why I brought up Dallas, because just 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, people were trying to put Deion Sanders, they were trying to put Travis Hunter, they were trying to put Shedeur Sanders. The Shedeur Sanders thing made no sense because Dak is guaranteed like another $80 million. And you got these dudes on TV yelling and screaming. Everybody wants to give Deion and his kids every job that exists, right? But what I always said was Dallas needed less stars. They need less Jerry talking, right? They need less guys doing podcasts and more just team stuff where you take some of the stars away and they won 3 out of 4. What do you know? they're just playing football and winning games. And I know they ain't beating the greatest teams on earth, but they did beat Washington. This is, I think, what the Cowboys need more of this, and they're winning enough games now, but they're going to be out of the Colorado sweepstakes.
Yeah, and at this point, you got to build out that roster more. I mean, you're locked into Dak Prescott, and that's maybe not the best thing. Being locked into CeeDee Lamb is a great thing. You know, you have him on your team, and your offense is doing things, but you got to surround him with talent. I mean, Rico Dowdle, as Landon mentioned, has been a nice little find for them, especially after the whole Zeke situation and how terribly that went. Who could have predicted that was going to go terribly? Spoiler alert, everybody. But I think that for me, it's like, okay, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, like you need to get CD an actual Robin. CD's Batman. Go get him a Robin. Go get him a sidekick. Right? Jake Ferguson's a solid tight end. But the biggest thing with Dallas, I know we've talked about this, you and I, has been the offensive line plummeted from what their usual standard is. Defensively, it's really Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, and both those guys have had to miss time due to injuries, and now Trayvon's out for the season. You don't really have a lot of other people. So I think for Dallas, it is a talent issue where they have a couple of really, really good stars, but then there's such that drop-off after them that, you know, you can't be a competitive team with a roster built like that.
You cannot. It is a team building issue. But they won enough games now that where they are in the draft order, they ain't gonna have a chance to. They're 14th as of today, and they'll probably win another 1 or 2 games. Now let's go for the top 2. Everybody's talking about when they saw Shador talking to the Raiders owner or the Raiders managing general partner Mark Davis. They're number 1. The Giants. Shador was just throwing passes back and forth with Malik Neighbors, and then somebody said Deion ain't gonna want his son to go in there. And Deion came out and go, I don't care who tell it. You know what I'm saying? Stop lying on my son for clout and all of this stuff. But the New York Giants, they're another team that needs a quarterback and maybe a little bit more. Listen to Patricia Train to talk about them, and then I'll come back and ask you a question about Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders.
As expected, the New York Giants were no match for the Baltimore Ravens, who got 5 passing touchdowns out of quarterback Lamar Jackson as part of a 35-14 rout. The Giants, losers of 9 in a row and in danger of becoming the first team in the modern era to go winless at home, had to turn to their 4th quarterback this season in Tim Boyle after starter Tommy DeVito left the game at halftime with a concussion. While Boyle didn't play all that badly, the fact remains that the Giants are just not on the same level talent-wise with their competition. And so now the question continues to grow. With each passing loss and each embarrassing loss, should team ownership stay the course with the current regime of Joe Shane and Brian Daboll? A second playing towing a message that promised to continue expressing its feelings until changes were made an appearance over MetLife Stadium. The team, of course, downplaying it as they did with the first plane that flew over the stadium. Well, we still have a few weeks before we learn ownership's decision, if they're going to stay with Daboll and Shane, or if they're just going to shake things up. But one thing is,
I'll tell you this, though. I think they're going to shake things up, but I don't think Daboll's going anywhere. I think that's a good landing spot for Shador. It's New York. Brian Daboll understands young quarterback. And I don't think the fragility that Daniel Jones had, Shador doesn't have that, man. He's on a whole nother level. And if he has that rapport, I think being at number 2, they can get one of those guys. I do think it's gonna be a little bit of a battle between the Giants and the Raiders at the top. But then when you start thinking about it, that leaves Travis Hunter as the other guy. So the other day on Fox, there's been so much. And by the way, shout out to Travis Hunter. He's getting a lot of unnecessary heat that he shouldn't be getting about his personal life. That young man won the Heisman Trophy, and that should be the only thing that people are focusing on. But there was actually football talked about when it comes to him. And Jay Glazer the other day on the Fox NFL Sunday show said that he polled 13 head coaches and GMs where they play Heisman Trophy Travis Hunter. 12 of the 13 said cornerback with packages on offense, and 1 said they try him at punt return 2, and then 1 who did say wide receiver cited his elite ball skills. What do you think he's good at? Well, he's good at everything, but what do you think is the best way to weaponize him in the National Football League?
Yeah, I mean, I think that cornerback's probably where I'd play him, but I think you can play him both places and not really have to think twice about it. The thing with that, though, is snap loop. Like, he's playing a crazy amount of snaps right now. And is that sustainable for an entire career? You're going to have to find a way to maximize the ball skills, like you talked about, to maximize the athleticism. And it honestly, I mean, I don't think it's as like cut and dry as, oh, he's, everybody's going to play him one position. It's going to be based off of need. I mean, I'm sure maybe we'd see a team that like 1 year has a huge corner need and plays him at corner. And then all of a sudden they lose all their wide receivers and says, hey, Travis, let's see what you can do over here next year. And so it could just be even like a crazy year-to-year positional basis for him. But this is a player that has all-time talent. Like, it is unbelievable how good he is at both positions. And this is a great problem to have, by the way. This is the best problem you can have. So I think for me, cornerback is probably where I'd play him. But if you said wide receiver, I would not argue twice with you about it. I would be totally on board.
So I think he's an anomaly. I think the only person that I've seen that can be like him is Deion. And that was good that they were matched up. I think he's a better receiver prospect than Deion was. I don't think he's a better corner than Deion. He might be just as good, but Deion's the best cover corner I've ever seen in my life. So I will say this. I think what you have to do is you have to take the money out of it, because him as an outlier, even if he's going both ways, he ain't going to be fitting to any constructs of, well, what is the average for corners versus what is the average for wide receivers? If he's playing a variation of both and he's as good as we think he is, of course, rookie contracts are slotted. After that, Kevin, it's just going to be, when he becomes a free agent, he's a weapon. That's all he is. And you're going to have to pay him as a weapon. And they did that with a lot of players. They did it with Christian McCaffrey. They did it with a few other players. You gotta break the mold and change it when guys just don't fit the mold. Here's what I will tell you, though. If I look at Travis Hunter, the wide receiver, versus Travis Hunter, the corner, it's probably a wash. If I look at Travis Hunter on a daily basis as a full-time wide receiver who plays a little bit of corner, I think guys like Jamar Chase, and I think guys like Justin Jefferson will eat his lunch if he ain't been doing reps at cornerback all week. That's just the way I feel about it. That is too hard and too difficult. He ain't going to go out there and guard Mike Evans, man, and you ain't took reps all week at corner, right? But I do think if he's a full-time corner, he can actually take him a rep or two, because you can move him around if he has to go against Derek Stingley or Sauce Gardner. You can actually move him around a little bit and create situations where you can get him the ball. So just from a standpoint of what is the most operationally functional thing to do, I think you bring him in, you rep him all week at corner, and then you have a package and you play him on offense. I've been saying it for 2 years. I've been telling people that for 2 years. As a Florida State follower, I told them when they recruited him, that's the way you have to play him. I think the in college, the touchdowns and the 10 receptions and the jump balls, I think that stuff is a little bit intoxicating. But when it gets to the NFL, I think it's going to come down to more of a down-to-down functional ability to play. And I think it's harder to do it if you're not repping at corner every single day. It's not hard to watch Locked On NFL because we're on 2 times a day. Tyler Rowland early in the morning, and me, Tony Wiggins, here as we come in the barbershop every single day, man, and we give it to you like you can't get anywhere else. So make sure you check out Locked On NFL 2 times a day using the local experts that know your team like Kevin Oestreicher better than anybody else. All right, man, that's Locked On NFL. Make sure you guys tap in every single day. Check out Locked On Ravens, Locked On Jaguars. Until next time, we will see you here on Locked On NFL.